1,000 miles away, there was a radical psychiatrist who had a vision. He wanted to make people free of all constraints that he believed controlled their minds without them realizing. And to make them free, like Nash, he would fundamentally question and undermine the old ideas of trust and love.
Is love possible? Is freedom possible? Is the truth possible? Is it possible to be one's actual self with another human being? Is it possible to be a human being anymore? Is it possible to be a person? Do persons even exist?
RD Laing had begun work as a psychiatrist in the mental hospitals in Glasgow in the 1950s. It was a violent, frightening world in which the doctors tried to manage and control schizophrenics as best they could. Laing had noticed that the psychiatrists hardly ever spoke to the schizophrenics. So as an experiment, he took 12 women and spent months talking to them about themselves and their lives. The results were dramatic. After just a few months, all 12 were well enough to leave the hospital. Within a year, Laing discovered that all of them had returned to the hospital. His attempt at a cure had failed completely.
After this experiment, these women left hospital, and after another year they were all back again. No one knew why they'd come in the first place, and no one knew why they had to come back again. So that shifted my focus of attention and interest and research interest out into the actual circumstances where this thing called madness is incubated.
Laing began to investigate the families of the schizophrenics. His research led him into a hidden, closed world where he studied how the members of the families behaved towards each other in private. And he became convinced that the roots of this madness lay concealed in this unexamined world. The doctors and nurses who used chemicals and ECT to try and return the patients to their families were making a terrible mistake. They were sending them back to the private horror that had first created the madness. If this were true, then the doctors, although they believed that they were doing their public duty and what was best for the patient, were in reality violent agents of oppression.
I think it's very important that a doctor remember his duty to give the patient what is best for them in their long-term interest, which isn't always what the patient asks for. If you want to go home to your relatives, the relatives have got to be reasonably sure that you will fit in reasonably well in their home so that they can go on living a normal life.
In the early 60s, Laing set up a psychiatric practice in Harley Street in London. He offered radical new treatments for schizophrenia and quickly became a media celebrity. But his research into the causes of schizophrenia had convinced him that a much wider range of human problems were caused by the pressure cooker of family life. Laing decided to investigate how power and control were exercised within the world of normal families. And to do this, he would use the techniques of game theory. Laing had learnt about game theory when he visited the Mental Research Institute in Palo Alto in California. A group of research scientists there were trying to use game theory as a way of analysing human interaction. And Laing saw in this the perfect tool to dissect what went on between the members of families in Britain.
Laing used game theory in his analysis of families. He was concerned with games not in the sense of fun, but games in the sense of people playing by rules, some of which were explicit and some of which they were unaware of, and which in a sense was secret. He thought he'd uncovered a fresh way of looking at human relations, those secret games that people had. This was a way in which it could be subject to some sort of scientific investigation. It could be quantified. You could give people questionnaires. Oh, it was very much the application of game theory. That's exactly what it was.
Laing took 20 couples in Britain, and using a complex series of questionnaires, he analysed how each of them saw the other, moment by moment in their daily life, continually asking them what they secretly thought the other really intended. Following game theory, he then coded the responses and had them analysed by computer. Out of that, Laing produced matrices which showed how, just as in the Cold War, couples used their everyday actions as strategies to control and manipulate each other. His conclusions were stark, that what were normally seen as acts of kindness and love were in reality weapons used selfishly to exert power and control.
Laing really did feel that the family was an arena for strategizing. Love was a way in which one person tried to dominate another person. I love you, but I'm making a condition for that love which is impossible for you to fulfill. And so there's nothing you can do to earn my love, even though I'm telling you, you have to earn my love.
From this research, Laing argued that the modern family, far from being a caring, nurturing institution, was in reality a dark arena where people played continuous selfish games with each other. Out of this struggle came stability in society, but a bleak and limited existence for all the individuals involved.
The so-called normal families that I studied in the course of this work, it was like walking into carbon monoxide gas chambers. People induce their children to adjust to life by poisoning themselves to a level of subsistence existence that they called life.
Laing was radicalised by his findings. He believed that the struggle for power and control that he had uncovered in the family was inextricably linked with the struggle for power and control in the world. In a violent and corrupt society, the family had become a machine for controlling people. Laing believed that this was an objective reality revealed by his scientific methods, above all by game theory. But these very methods contained within them bleak, paranoid assumptions about what human beings were really like. Assumptions born out of the hostility of the Cold War. And what Laing was actually doing was helping spread these bleak, paranoid ideas into other areas of society, into the very way we thought about ourselves and our relationships to each other.